Hello, this is Chat UTD. It's the final day of the transfer window. I'm going to talk about Ugarte, Sancho, and rate the window at the end of the video today. Ugarte, the standout feature of this transfer is the length of time it's taken. I did a video, I think it was 7 weeks today ago, talking about personal terms being agreed for the player. PSG were not going to let him go until they'd sorted out the Neves deal, but that's been done for a while. Neves has been playing for PSG for the last few weeks, and Ugarte's not been part of the squad. I think the bigger problem in getting this deal over the line has been that United have to sell to buy. We haven't got the funds to be able to just go and get the player like we would want to. And the reason we find it difficult to sell players in order to free that money up to get players like Ugarte is because we've stockpiled and assembled a lot of mediocre players on crazy wages that no other clubs want to pay, and players that are quite happy just to sit and take their money, I think, really. So that's a legacy problem. That's a Glazer problem. We're still getting stung by the legacy of the Glazers and the people that they've employed. Could Ineos have acted a bit quicker this summer in certain aspects? Probably, but I think this is an issue related to the previous regime. It's frustrating. He's going to miss. He's not going to be available on Sunday, so he's going to have missed 3 games by the time he signs, which isn't ideal because it's an area of the pitch that we need to be stronger in. I have to say he's not even signed yet officially. Romano says it's done and dusted, but the club hasn't announced it. I hope they do. Let's take it that they're going to, and when they do, I think it's great news for Kobbie Mainoo. I think it liberates Kobbie Mainoo because he's so conscientious and disciplined that I think in terms of how he expresses himself when he's playing, he's probably playing at about 80% because he's always got an eye on what's going on behind him, and I don't think he feels he can leave Casemiro on his own. You've got a 32-year-old Champions League winner and an 18, 19-year-old kid, and you've got the 18, 19-year-old kid looking out for the 32-year-old rather than the other way around. And I think with Ugarte coming in, he's 23, he's fit, he's strong, he's quick, he's agile, he's all the things you'd expect a 23-year-old to be, I suppose. He's hopefully not going to get booked within the first 10 or 15 minutes of every game he plays. And I think I read the other day that he's missed 3 games through injury in his career so far. So obviously that's quite promising. And as I say, I think that then hopefully Mainoo goes and just expresses himself and has the freedom to do that. There could well be, because it looks like Casemiro is going to stay, that Ugarte and Casemiro play together at times. No problem with that. But I'd hope that ultimately the midfield as we move on this season is going to be Ugarte, Mainoo and Bruno. So a good signing. Get it confirmed, United, for the love of God. Sancho. If he's going, it looks like it's going to be Chelsea. Some United fans are a bit worried that could come back to bite us. I don't share that concern at all. I want Jadon Sancho to leave our club, and it's no concern of mine, no business of mine where he goes. I don't care. He's not good enough for me to worry about it. I have no fear whatsoever that he's going to come back and haunt us because he's not good enough. He could join Chelsea, City, Liverpool, Arsenal, Tottenham. I don't care. Newcastle, go wherever you want. Just don't stay at Man United. He's not good enough to play for a top team. Chelsea's a basket case club. It'll suit him well. Last season, there was players physically fighting over who was going to take a penalty. So I think he'll fit in really, really nicely there. And I'm sure he'll have the odd good game, and he's a half decent player, but absolutely not a minute's worry that he is going to come back and haunt Man United. Because his attitude's so poor and he's not that good. And I'm not talking in hindsight here. I said it at the time. I didn't get the signing at the time we made it. I didn't think it was an area of great need within the team. I thought we desperately needed a centre midfielder at that time. We spent 75 million quid and spunked loads of wages on him. And I hadn't seen anything from him that suggested he was worth what we paid and that he was going to be a transformative character. And obviously it's gone spectacularly wrong. As I said the other day, one of the worst signings we've ever made. And Guy in one of his in a comment said he agreed that it was the worst, one of the worst United signings, and asked what would my others be. Guy, I hope you got the reply where I pointed you to a video I did in February. But just quickly, the three worst I would say in the modern era have been Di Maria, Pogba, and Sancho. Not necessarily in that order. And I think they share a lot of the same characteristics and flaws. I don't think any of them really wanted to play for United. I think they were all very disrespectful of United. I think they're arrogant. In particular with Pogba and Sancho, they seem to be players that require certain conditions to be successful, certain players around them, whereas you've got a player like Bruno who comes into a barely functioning Man United team at that time and just says, "Give me the ball, I'll go and sort it out," kind of thing. Scores loads of goals, creates loads of goals. Doesn't matter who's in front of him, who's to the left of him, who's to the right of him, who's behind him. Just goes and does it. Takes responsibility, gets the shirt on, puffs his chest out, and goes and plays football. That's a Man United player. These guys that I just mentioned before probably shouldn't have ever played for United and darkened the doors of the club, and really are the epitome of everything that's been wrong with the modern Manchester United. So good riddance. With Scott McTominay, it was good luck. With Sancho, it's good riddance. Hopefully, if he stays, I think we've got a big problem on our hands. This is the time when we go rate this window, isn't it? Like, how do we assess how we've done in this window? The problem for me is the lack of volume of outgoings. Eriksen needs to go, Lindelof needs to go, probably Maguire needs to go. You could argue Casemiro, although he might be unlucky to be involved in that conversation. But the big one's Rashford, and people have gone very quiet about that. But that was a deal. That was a player that is a player that needs to go. In February, Sir Jim Ratcliffe did an interview with Dan Rowan, and it was the first time he'd been interviewed since taking sporting control of United, and he spoke a good game. He talked a lot about environment and creating an elite environment and consistency and a culture and an ethos and an identity and that type of stuff. And it was all very impressive what he was saying. And I did a video in response to it at the time and said, if he's saying those things, then, and he means it, then you've got to look at your highest paid, high profile player and say, does he represent all that? And absolutely no, he doesn't. And I said at the time, if in the summer things haven't improved with Rashford's form and he remains at the club, I'm going to call bullshit on what Ineos said in that. That's what Sir Jim Ratcliffe said in that interview. At that point, from February to May, you've got another 3 months to turn your fortunes around to improve. And supposedly, that a whole lock, stock, and barrel review was going on. And did Rashford's form improve? No. Did his application improve? No. It was around the same sort of time, I think it might have been after that interview, that he went on the piss in Belfast and didn't turn up to training. It was around the same sort of time when there was that clip doing the rounds of Ross Barkley on the ball, and Rashford, under the guise of trying to press, was jogging like it was a testimonial. So, and that just continued throughout the rest of the season. And one thing that stood out was Sir Jim Ratcliffe said in that interview that they have a saying at Ineos that they can make a mistake and that's fine, but never make the same mistake twice. Well, for 3 months from then until the end of the season, the mistake I think the club made was that they gave Rashford unwarranted support because he was giving nothing back, and he was picked too regularly based on his performances. So that was a mistake, in my opinion, and Ineos are running the club by that point. Fast forward to now, the start of the season, nothing's changed. His form hasn't improved, his body language isn't any better, his application isn't any better, his productivity isn't any better, and he still gets unwarranted support from the club, and he's still playing more minutes than he should have done. So that is a repetition of a mistake. I'm not sure what they're expecting is going to change with Rashford. It's the definition of madness to keep doing the same thing and expect a different result. So, I repeat, I call bullshit on the whole manifesto, the whole mission statement, because they've chosen to keep, with no improvement whatsoever from February until now, to keep the poster boy as Marcus Rashford. And I think symbolically, it sends a really, really poor message out. And I said in that video, and I wasn't like throwing my toys out of the pram, but I just said my support for this whole thing would wane a little bit if there was no improvement in Rashford and they just carried on blindly with him in the team and with him being the main guy. Because I just would have not a lot of faith in it, because it looks quite hypocritical. They're saying all the right things and then they have him in the team every week. The two things don't marry together at all. So I'm sorry if you're fed up about me talking about him, but it's a big issue. And my criteria for success in this transfer window was, have they got the bollocks to go and make big decisions? And they haven't made any big decisions. The people that they've let go of have been easy wins, easy ones to get rid of. They've not tackled the I think the bigger picture stuff. And I'm not got a problem with Eriksen, Lindelof, Maguire, Casemiro. I don't have a problem with any of those players, but they're players that I would suggest, if you want to move forward, you have to be ruthless and get rid of those players, and they're still knocking about. And the ones they've got rid of, I don't think are bad eggs. I don't think they're the ones that I'd have been, McTominay maybe, but I wouldn't have been going, get McTominay out of the club. Greenwood absolutely, but Wan-Bissaka, decent player, not on daft money, not old, good attitude, mouldable, versatile, always does his best for the team. I think at an age where he could still improve, and if you coach him properly, I think definitely could continue to develop as a player. Varane, Rolls Royce of a player, has his injury problems, was on a big wage. I kind of get it, but again, he wouldn't have been the first one out the door. So they've got rid of players who were okay, who weren't a big problem, who weren't on chance number however many at United, and they've kept players who are. I don't have a big problem with Xerxes at all. I think the profile of player is exciting, but it's a very similar profile to Højlund, and I think we would have been better served getting a player who's a little bit more experienced as a foil for Højlund. I don't know what the market is for strikers between 29 and 32. Maybe the wages would be too high, and I know Ineos are trying to move away from older players, but it can't just be a blanket rule of we're not signing anyone over 25 or 26. I think we need to look at what's needed, and I think we need a more experienced player with Højlund than we did last season as well. So Xerxes, not a problem, but I'd have gone in a different direction with that. So let's look at the squad, and then I'm going to give you my rating for the window. You need two players in each position, and let's look at it. So the goalkeeper, we've got two goalkeepers, that's fine. Right back, we've got Dalot and Mazraoui. Left back, you've got Shaw and Malacia. So essentially, you could say we do have two players for each fullback position, but really we don't, because Malacia's been out for more than a year, and we're not sure what's going on with him. Luke Shaw can't stay fit, hasn't been able to stay fit on and off for 10 years. So what we essentially have is two fit fullbacks, and you need four. So that's an area of weakness, I'd say. Centre-back, we're well stocked. Holding midfield, if we get Ugarte, we'll have Ugarte and we'll have Casemiro. So that's okay. Mainoo, who's the foil for Mainoo? Who plays if he doesn't play? Is it Eriksen? Not great. Hardly like for like. Bruno. Probably the understudy to Bruno is Mount, who cost £50 million. Bizarre signing, and remains a bizarre signing. And he's injured. Again. Right wing, you've got Ahmad and you've got Anthony. So quantity-wise, fine. But quality-wise, Ahmad, as I've said, needs to be given his head this year. Technician. Love the lad. Think he could be brilliant for United, and I really want to see him play week in, week out, so that's exciting. But Anthony, I want him to prove people wrong. I want him to do well at United, and I think there is a player in there, but he don't make it easy on himself. He just doesn't improve. He doesn't do anything different. I don't think he's been coached particularly well, because the coach has surely got to try and help him to do something different to what he's doing. Difficult to keep supporting him. So we've got one who looks really good. We've got one who's really struggling. Up front, I've just mentioned it. I don't think it's a particularly strong area of the pitch. And then left wing, again, we've got one in Garnacho who could go on and be a real star. And you've got another in Rashford who, it's like playing with 10 men when he plays. So that's not a squad with a lot of depth of quality. I would say we're probably about 4 players away from having a team that I would trust to consistently cope with the season like we need to cope with it. We've got at least 8 Thursdays that we're going to be playing on in the Europa League, and then a quick turnaround obviously to play on the Sunday. And I don't think that squad's close to being good enough. And there's players in there that shouldn't be there, that shouldn't have been there last year or the year before, but they're still here. And that's probably my biggest gripe, is that I don't think we've got rid of the volume of players we needed to get rid of, but it's also the particular characters that I'd have liked to have seen leave are still here. So if I'm rating the window, I'm going to give it 5, and I think I'm being pretty generous. And I'm looking at that with Ugarte coming in and Sancho leaving. So, hopefully that happens. But I couldn't give it any more than a 5. Not all Ineos's fault, and I'm not saying it is. Some bits are, some bits aren't. But United are where we are. We are a club still desperately hampered by the legacy of the Glazers, and they're still there. So this isn't just on Ineos, but I'm looking at United's transfer window, warts and all. And warts and all, it's a 5 out of 10 for me. We're at tea time, some things could happen this evening. I don't think they will. I think the best that's going to happen for United in the remaining hours of the transfer window are that Ugarte will be announced. Please God that happens. And again, similar, Sancho leaves. Please God that happens. I don't think there'll be any surprises. And that'll be that. So tomorrow I'm going to do the preview of Liverpool. I have a pre-recorded version of it actually, which I might do, or I might just do a fresh one, depending on what happens between now and the end of the day. And if anything spectacular happens, I'll probably come on live like Mark Goldbridge on the United stand. Excuse the Alan Partridge finish. Glazers out.